Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cinema Savvy. It's myself, George. No, it's not. Just before you look and thought, George has had a hard week this week. He looks very rugged.
I was going to say more
You're right.
handsome.
Thank you. That's what I was going for, Sam. You're right. Absolutely. So, fortunately, George isn't joining us tonight. So, Tate is here, but I have literally stolen the reins from underneath him, and I'm taking charge because it's about time. So, we're going to get this. As I say, I'm here with Tate, and I'm here with Sam, just below me there. Two lovely, handsome gentlemen to join me and talk through season 1, episode 11 of Andor, which is the Daughter of FERRIX episode. Before we get into that, I'm going to hand you straight over to Tate to give you the socials.
Yes, exactly. So we want to hear always what everyone is thinking about from this show. So please comment along. Tell us your thoughts on this episode. This is spoilers, so you can say whatever you want. We don't care about it. Say what you think about the series as a whole, what you think is going to happen in the finale as well. So comment along. Don't forget to also subscribe, like, do all the normal stuff. Share this video. Get a discussion going. Everything involved in there. And please do remember to tune in to the finale next Wednesday. It's going to be, I'm hoping, a good episode. I really do hope it's a good episode. I hope we don't go out on a whimper. But as far as the series has gone so far, it's been fantastic. So please make sure to not only kind of stick around and give your comments on this one, but also to tune into next week for the big finale. And go find us on all of our social media streams where you can find out all of the information on any of the episodes. We always go live at 9 o'clock on Wednesdays. I'm forgetting what day of the week it is. Please go check us out on all of our social media streams. And then you don't have to listen to my voice. You can just see when we're going live. It's so much easier. So that's Twitter and Instagram at cinema_savvy. Go on to Facebook and Letterboxd. Just type in Cinema Savvy and you'll find us there. And go on to Redbubble where you can pick up a t-shirt that looks like this, or a jumper that looks like this, or a pillow that looks like this. Anything you want on the store, help out the channel, whatever you can.
So yeah, with that done, before we obviously get started, obviously, yes, Tate, Sam, I haven't heard from you for a while, so we've just had probably what most people have thought has been the best arc of the series so far. So what have your thoughts been on sort of the last 3 episodes, like that arc itself?
Go on, Sam.
So I had a great time with it, actually. So the last time I was on was for episode 9, I think. So we were kind of in that arc. I really loved it. I think it was definitely better than the Aldani stuff, which is probably my least favorite part of the show thus far. But even then, that was still very entertaining. But I think everyone knew this was going to happen anyway. We knew there was going to be some form of breakout. The fact that it really highlights these characters that we really haven't known for very long, and you kind of really rooting for everyone to be part of that. And I really felt kind of a sense of elation when they were getting, further and further up and out. And I think you really get that sense of morale that must be going through the heads of everyone else there. And then my favorite part of it, which is awful actually, is when they are jumping into the water. And then I cannot even remember the character's name, but when he says, I can't swim. And all I could hear in my head was the Curb Your Enthusiasm music. And I wrote it on Twitter. I was like, this is all I can think of. And I just wanted to do like a slow zoom into his face where it's like, dun, 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 dun. Which I know is awful. But I mean, I feel like it's played for funny a little bit because as soon as Andor looks, he's like, what? And then like he gets pushed off. So I don't know. But he could have survived. Who knows? We have no idea. But no, I loved the way it ended with kind of such mixed emotions and all of that, and to kind of just kind of hope that everyone did escape. We probably aren't going to know about the majority of them, but at least for those 2 that got out.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the arc as well. I think it's been my favorite arc of the show so far, and I think the only way of really comparing it is because the episode lengths are about 40 minutes each. When you put 3 together, it makes a film length kind of arc for the story. So I was really invested into the prison storyline and everything that was going around it, and how I viewed the series so far with its 3-episode format, 3-episode format, and then I guess the 4 episodes that you could have said with announcement tacked onto there as the last kind of 4 episodes before this one. It really did feel like kind of a big build up to kind of a fantastic kind of not only breakout film, but a really good origin story for Cassian and kind of how he got involved into the rebellion. So I really enjoyed that element of it going into it. And I've really kind of enjoyed where they've taken Star Wars in general with Andor so far. I've kind of made my comments clear on one of the previous videos as well. But I think it's fantastic what they're doing with the show. And I'm shocked that people aren't talking about this more because they should be. It's really good.
It's a really bizarre thing that you're right. When you go on the internet at large, apart from some of those big channels that just put out negativity sometimes, that there isn't this big pull still for this series. Even 11 episodes in, one away from the finale, is quite crazy to me that it's not. I mean, I get what you've just said is amazing, because we did have this amazing arc of a story, this really ramping up towards these last 2 episodes. We've had a very big change of pace going back to episode 11 from where we were. It's while the story's still building, and we've kind of, it's one kind of plot point really of them getting the message out about first character we'll be talking about in a second, Marva, and getting the word out to all these people, because you could have literally, it's the episode title's Daughter of FERRIX. It could have been Let's Get the Band Back Together on FERRIX. So that's kind of what you do throughout the whole episode, just one by one realizing that's where they're going to have to be, and that's obviously where the finale is going to take place. We're back with Tony Gilroy, his first episode since episode 3, where he's actually written, as well as obviously having the creative point on there as well. And Benjamin Caron, who directed this episode, also did episode 7, which was the announcement. So he had that filler episode before, like the midway between the 2 stories, and he's now doing this one. I think he's doing 12 as well. So we've kind of got the feel for what they're kind of going for, and I think we will start by going to FERRIX where everyone else is, because why not?
Very quickly, we do
Yes.
have a few comments. I'll just go through all of them so far.
Fire
so thank
them
you.
up, yeah.
Evening, good evening, good evening. Loads of comments so far. And Martin actually had a question for us. What's the time gap between when they rob the money and when Fiona Shaw dies?
It's actually, yeah, it's a good question, Martin. Thank you very much for joining us. As always, Martin, it's always good to see your comments on there. Again, thanks, Phil, for joining us as well. No space for you here, and there's no extra box, so thank you for being here. So that's awesome. But yeah, I don't actually know. It doesn't seem like the time frame has been massive between the whole arc of the story. Although when Cassian had been in prison, didn't it tell you how many shifts he'd done at the start of one of the? I think it was in 9 or 10, it told you how many days he'd been since he arrived, but it might have been 30 odd shifts or something like that. So I don't think it's been a massive span of time. So it's from Martha's death, I would put this no more than, I would say maybe 2-3 months max, really.
Yeah.
Is my thinking on it. So what about you guys?
I would say like 1 to 2 months, maybe 3 at a push.
Yeah.
But yeah.
An amount of time, I would say.
Time
has passed, but you know, it's Star Wars. Time is
the big hand on the watch has moved, and
seconds tick. You know, we've also got prediction coming in. I think Luther might die in the finale. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in the episode. We'll also bring up Phil's point once again. This episode was total emotional freight train. It's showing Star Wars' human side. Mon Mothma's breaking point in morals, Marva's death, Bix's tortured look, and the realization it's not over. Let's talk about Marva's death. That, I think, is a good jumping off point.
I think it's the perfect point, because it was the main thing, the main drive of this episode was that moment, and then the spreading out of the word across all of our characters to bring them to FERRIX. So the first thing I kind of want to put to you guys is Marva died off screen. And of all the characters I thought we would see I didn't think everyone would get out this alive, and it probably was going to be Marva because of the state of her health at the time and the way she was talking, like she was ready just to be, if I die now, it's for the rebellion, and that's fine. She'd kind of settled herself with that. That speech where she said she'd walk across a square where her husband was hung was her just being like, right, okay, I'm ready now. But for her to just kind of the start of the episode and her be gone and no longer with us, we didn't even see her, like, apart from her body was being carried out, but obviously, and wasn't probably her under there, to have that and not to actually see it, and not being like morbid that I need to see her die, but I did find it surprising that she didn't die on camera.
Is it them laying I'm seeing it in 3 different ways possibly. One, if she's dead and actually dead, as in dead, she has died, her character has deceased, then I think it's
So dead, yeah.
I think it's actually quite fitting that she's gone out with kind of no fuss at all.
Okay.
And how people who can kind of suffer under the Empire can just slip away and not go out in a blaze of glory. Not everyone who rebels has to go out in that fantastic kind of sweeping music, being shot down by soldiers. Sometimes people fight the good fight and just pass away. And I quite like that as kind of a character, to have that as their way of passing, and it just be kind of a silent background thing and less of a kind of big bombastic thing, because that happens all the time. You never know when that's going to kind of hit you, especially within this universe. We knew she had bad health. Then you think of it as she's part of the rebellion. Is she pretending to be dead to lay a trap? Is kind of the rebellion, have they come up with a plan to not only kind of draw Cassian back to FERRIX, but also to, you know, concoct something, draw in some ISB officers and basically do exactly what they did last time, cause a nuisance, kind of bring something forwards? Or is it going to be the opposite end of it? Is it the Empire trying to pull something? Have they whisked her away in the middle of the night and they've kind of assumed that she's dead? Or it's somewhere in there, you don't know what's going on or anything like that. I'm just throwing out theories here as to whether whether there's a scheme involved at all, or if it's just a kind of silent passing.
Yeah, I kind of think of it on a couple of levels as well, although I'm kind of more leaning towards, I think she probably is just dead, but I think it works for me, as is, you know, off screen, for two reasons. One, because like Tate said, not everyone has to go out in such a way. You don't really need to have a very dramatic death scene, whether or not, you know, it's in action or, you know, something like Shmi Skywalker where it is emotional and all that. You know, they could have very easily gone that route and had the mother and son and done that. But also, I mean, just being more realistic, she probably died just with the best droid in the universe and the galaxy. And I just feel like it would have been unnecessary to actually see that. I think to know it is enough. But also it puts us, I guess, in the shoes of Cassian a little bit, because, you know, we last see her when he last sees her. So, I mean, I kind of like that. And I didn't really think about it until after watching the episode. And I was like, oh, yeah, that was the last time. Because I know she was mentioned, and obviously the Imperials were keeping watch on the house and whatnot, but we never saw her. So I'm quite content as a story beat. Like, I'm happy that it's kind of happened like this, and that no time was wasted, not on her as a character, but just on a moment of her life, which is just sad and wouldn't really, you know, do that much. So I think for timing and to just keep everything moving, to keep the pace moving, I think it was probably best that they did it as they did.
Scott Phil dropping in a comment as well. I think she's dead. I don't think she would agree to be used like that to draw back Cassian. There's an excellent point that all this time she never wanted to leave. She never wanted to go. When Cassian was like, "We've got this opportunity. I've got all this cash. I've got a ship. Let's get out of here." And she's like, "No, I'm here. The rebellion will never." What was it? She said she'd never get inside her mind. Like, they would never take over that. So I think you're right. I love the way you said that, Sam. That the last time Cassian saw her is the last time we saw her as well. I think that's a really nice way to put it. That Cassian's now going to be desperate to get back because of the way he left it. That he thought he'd see her again and is not going to. And B2 Emo. I mean, we see where he gets his name, the little Moby droid that he is. But oh my word, R2D2 has always been that droid you can go to in this show that emotes through beeps, and the fact this droid talks and seems, it's just so depressed right now. It was actually grieving when you first see that eye. It looked like it was watering. It looked like it was literally it was crying. It was B2 Emo is an absolute legend, and Dave mentioned it just before we came on air. If anything happens to this droid in the finale, there will be an uprising.
I'm actually going to go sick. Do you know when, like, at the first scene of this episode, I was like, okay, I'm really feeling for you, mate, right now. And then the last scene with him, and it was like, do you want me to stay? And just one night. And it's just like, oh, like I just honestly want to hug him. I really, really do. And the fact that he's got that name is just breathtaking.
I've always seen B2 as that kind of, it's like a pet character. It's like a pet who can talk to you and is kind of really excited and kind of says what's immediately out in front of them. But you can also see kind of the depression there when, you know, the owner dies, and Yeah, if genuinely, if anything happens, like I don't think the show's ever gonna recover from the hate it's gonna get online.
Just physically can't. That robot, it means too much to too many people now, and it's Star Wars have that in them. They create these droids that just, for some unknown reason, speak to you sometimes more than a lot of the actual characters that you pass by do. You know, like Mon Mothma's daughter, things like that. So you just want to punch in the face repeatedly with their chanting. But yeah, well, while we're on FERRIX, we'll stay there. I mean, we don't get a great deal on FERRIX, although we jump back to it quite often. What I want to talk about next, actually, was probably the next big scene in that in FERRIX was we kind of get the ISB, and it's their only sort of involvement outside of the guy watching from the cafe that Cinta's also in as well. We've got this little cafe that he's why she mustn't get this. Surely she's going to bump at some point like that guy's hat looks quite imperial. No, no, just a normal hat, different color, honestly. But you got the information about what would happen with Marva after her death, that they're going to parade her through the streets because she was this daughter of FERRIX, and that she would be bricked, which when they take their ashes with some of the soil or gravel from FERRIX, make it into a brick and put her into, like she says, and then what? Find her a wall. That message of FERRIX being built on the back of their actual people, I thought was a really amazing message. I did not expect that to kind of come through in this. That all you're seeing, these walls that you're seeing, these buildings that you're seeing, are all probably built from people who've lived here. And I thought it was a really, really amazing point.
Yeah, it's something as part of kind of a culture in Star Wars we haven't seen yet, but it's very kind of on the backs of the kind of hard workers who built this town kind of mentality and stuff like that. And it's an interesting culture to be brought forward because I've never heard of anything like it in kind of any culture outside of Star Wars. I'm sure there might be a culture out there somewhere that uses kind of that kind of ritual burying and stuff like that. But I think the key thing from there was kind of them saying it's a public funeral. She was a daughter of FERRIX, and therefore it's going to be, because she was a member of the community and kind of, you know, born there, died there, it's going to be not a big funeral, but it's going to be public. And I think that kind of making sure everyone knew it's a public funeral. People are going to be there. It's going to be open and in the streets. We know exactly where we're going with the finale from that point on. It's like, okay, the finale's happening on FERRIX. We got it. Okay, we get that everyone's going to be gathering there. And like you said, the start is going to be like, they should just call the episode like everyone's going to gather in FERRIX next episode, basically.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting, piece of world building, and which we don't get very often, which we've started to get more in these types of shows. I feel like something like the Book of Boba Fett with all the Tusken Raider scenes, you got a lot of, ideas about their culture and about what they did, and either rituals and just certain day-to-day things that for them is just part of the course, but for the audience is alien. And it's the same with this. However, with this and the way they're wanting to do this funeral, it's in a very kind of sideways thing, if you know what I mean, where the using of ashes for something, which I know for us, I know that occasionally does happen, where ashes are formed into different materials and whatnot that you can either wear or can be placed somewhere. So it's not too far out there that you go, oh, that's weird. It is very nice that they're doing that. But I think, the main thing is that it's not just for the sake of, adding this piece of world building. It is to kind of lead on to how does this bring Cassian in, or just in general, how does this get us to the next step in the story? And ultimately, this funeral will probably be the centerpiece of the finale. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that goes, and how the ISB are really going to utilize that. We know what their plans are, but I'm a little bit scared for the people there, the town, the city. I would hate we're saying about these ashes that are then put into bricks and buildings, making up this world. I'd be devastated to just think about all those people dying, being put there, and then the ISB and the Imperials just tearing it down, which sounds like it's something that's going to happen. I think a lot of people would probably gloss over it, but I think because we've heard it and because it's kind of been focused upon, it's something that's going to stick in my mind. But you would never think that for any other type of thing in Star Wars. So, it's just really interesting to have it, and I am scared at the same time.
It's going to be a strange, yeah. Like when they attack, if they're going to have a big attack and people are picking up bricks, like nope, not that. I mean, nah, no, not that one. That was the dog. Oh, the hamster. No, give us a minute. So yeah, but I get your absolute point. You don't want that. You really feel that any destruction is then going to be like, oh my god, that's not just a building anymore. Those aren't just old disheveled houses and things anymore. It is the backbone of what was their past in there as well. And while we're in this, like you say with the ISB, planning on this, yep, you are going to give them a funeral. You're going to let them parade. You're going to let them, but you're going to limit the people. You're going to limit their time. We want this to be. They want them somewhere they can literally be surrounded by, are going to be watched over. We know from I think it was one of the very first trailers, there's Death Troopers coming. So they're coming to the final episode. They're going to be obviously around for whatever's going to happen. And obviously we got the scene, we get to see Bix again, who has obviously been being tortured since we last left her in the previous episodes. And she's a broken woman, but at the same time had an opportunity to maybe say Luthen wasn't the guy behind everything. She gets asked if Krieger, who we've had mentioned over many episodes, is going to get sacrificed by Luthen. If that's who's actually behind it, is that's the one she introduced Cassian to, but we don't see her give an answer, but she's so broken from this torture. I don't know if she'll ever recover from that. Whatever they're playing in that Lobot headset of hers, it's made her just a blank kind of caricature of herself. She just had nothing behind those eyes.
Yeah, it's very interesting because we have seen some kind of minor torture in Star Wars before, even the effects of torture kind of after the fact. But we've never actually kind of seen the torture. I know they introduced it in the last episode, but with this episode, we kind of see the effect of that, and it is grim. It is awful, and it does push people to the breaking point, and it does kind of leave people completely disheveled and, like out of it, beyond it. I think it was a very interesting point that you made about, things we have seen in the trailers that is going to be coming into it. And I've seen this series so far as kind of Andor learning to become a part of the rebellion.
Very much.
And just like we've had in the comments here, season 2 will be set over 4 years and will end with the first scenes of Rogue One. So I'd say this first series is all about him kind of becoming a part of the rebellion, fully investing himself, him going, I'm a rebel now. And I guess series 2 is going to be kind of what he does as an actual rebel as part of that activity. So whether he meets up back again with Luthen or whether he gets kind of smushed together with Saw Gerrera, we're going to have to see with kind of the final episode, or whether that's going to come in series 2. We don't know. But that's kind of what I'm expecting to see coming from at least the next episode, something like that.
With Bix, it's one of those things where they really leave it for us, open to interpretation at this stage. But as you said, she's so broken, and kind of that. I think I do have to applaud the acting, that she doesn't say anything, but you just read her face, and obviously makeup helps and all that, but to just kind of see her look so withdrawn, and then but she's still got fights and spark in her, which you see when she is faced with the image and being asked about whether it's Luthen, if that's the contact or not, and so it annoys me because I want to know what she does and what she says, and which of course will be revealed next time, we hope. But just everything that's going on there, it does leave me with a sense of, because of what Andor's going to be the next season, it makes me think, how is this going to end? Of course, for Cassian, it's probably going to end with him, wanting to really work for the rebellion, or at least go in that direction. However, does that mean that he's going to be losing way more than just his mother? Is every single person on FERRIX that he knows going to be gone? Is
the planet going to go?
Well, bombardment. I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's been so much set there because of what's going to happen with the time span over the next season. Really, for many of these characters, they may only fit for this specific moment. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a bloodbath. And part of me awfully hopes that there is, because I think it would just be such a shock, really. Even though I'm kind of thinking it, do I believe that they would do it? But they've done certain things with the show already that, have surprised me, pleasantly surprised me. And so I just hope that it's as realistic as it can be, because I think in many ways they've done that across the different areas of this show, across the different characters and within the environments that they're in. Nothing feels, they would never do that, or why have they done that? Like, a lot of it's just seen, okay, that's how it is, and that's due to the fact that this world has been built up in such a great way, and I really believe in it. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if FERRIX, as we know it, is gone at the end of the next episode, and we don't really go back to that again.
I'm gonna throw in a wild prediction here very quickly. What happens if Cassian has a John Wick moment and they kill B2 and he just goes nuts?
he's gonna pick up the phone. Miro's gonna be on the other side, and he's gonna do a full Liam Neeson taken. Except for him, it would be droid destroyed. And I'm gonna kill you. I think that's what we'll do.
That'll be it. The last shot of FERRIX just before it blows up is the eye just focusing, and then it goes off, the whole thing. I think you're right. I think sorry. I think a bloodbath is probably the best way to do it. You kind of want to leave Cassian kind of where we find him in Rogue One. He's got nothing. If FERRIX is gone, he loses everything. He was torn away from the childhood he had and brought to FERRIX and raised, to then lose his mother, his father. And I'm guessing I don't see a way out of this series for Bix, to be honest, either. I think we will see a lot of those characters end their time in the last episode. But you're right, I do want that. I do want Cassian to have nothing left, that it needs to find that family again in the rebellion, that he needs to be able to give his everything to that rebellion when it comes around again.
It's the stakes to remain high. And I don't, you don't want, with any show, with any form of media, you don't want things to happen for the sake of it. And I would never want a character to be wasted just for shock value. However, if they've done what they needed to do, their role is done, what they needed to give out for the other characters in the show to the audience, if that's done, then by all means. And if it helps set up other things, then for sure. And I think in this case, because of those characters, they're never going to leave FERRIX anyway, really, are they? So the only way for Cassian to not go back there, I don't think they could do a shock and just not have Cassian go back. And the whole thing is them expecting him to be there and he's not. I mean, part of me is thinking that, like, everyone else but him, and I think that would be really funny, and maybe that could be interesting. I don't know, but because I feel like he would know this has got to be a trap, regardless of whether or not she actually has died, which I think she has. But I'm just like, what would be the point in going? But he's already gone back before, so he'll probably do it again. But bring it on.
Exactly. And I think they've kind of, while we're on with the ISB, I think the only thing we're kind of going to tie back in with that as well is we're going to go to Cyril. He only has one real scene where he's again being berated by his mother, even though things are kind of falling at the place he said they were going to. And this is all going on. It's like, look, Mom, honestly, it's all right. When Sergeant Mosk gives him a call to let him know Trevor from EastEnders turns up again and takes
my favorite Make the
out
Galaxy Great Again guy. Absolutely adore that guy. I wish he would pop up on screen every week for 30 seconds.
It was like he was totally playing for like comedy relief as well. He was like, yeah, it was in there just for a little bit of humor. The breaking up of him, like, no, it's the mother. No, I'm here. It was like, yeah, that's not Cassian. Where's Cassian? It was nice. He takes me out of it, but I just can't see past the actor on this. Just that one character. I don't know what it is about him, but for me, it took me out. But I liked Cyril's kind of like, okay, he goes on to steal his mom out of the safe, some cash. And he's out of there. He's finally going to find his meaning, and that's for him to go back to FERRIX as well to try and right the wrongs of what he did the first time with that assault. So I was really interested in what it was going to be. He got such a short scene, but it kind of gave him finally. He was up there. He's been an office worker, and now he's working his way back to begin something after the first disaster at FERRIX.
Like, I didn't like this scene. This took me completely out of the atmosphere of the entire episode. And it was a comedy relief moment. We haven't had that kind of comedy relief moment in a while. And the first thing that I immediately thought of was the opening scene of Last Jedi. I was getting very kind of similar vibes to that, with the kind of the phone call conversation and stuff like that they had, or the kind of radio conversation. It's just not needed. And also for Moss to still be, loyal to him after, he got him fired from his job and, dishonorably discharged, basically. I'm shocked by that. I don't know what level of friendship they had beforehand, but I didn't think it was that close. For him to be able to still have that kind of, level of loyalty to a person who basically got him fired, it's unusual.
I think I enjoyed the scene only because I love the actor. I love how. Every time I see him, I do say that "Make the Galaxy Great Again" because I purely just see him as he's so indoctrinated by this idea of what the world is, and I think that's why his loyalty remains so strong, is because he believes that he lives it. He believes that so much in what the Empire is doing that he's willing to be there for anything. Kind of similar to Cyril, but without really the intellect to take it one step further. He is intelligent with strategy and that kind of like thing, which we saw, but it didn't work out for him on that occasion. But I think I do get what you said about the Last Jedi. I do think the comedy is a little bit jarring. However, I think it works for me more here than there, because there Poe was just being an absolute smart ass and really trying to just be something for no good reason. Whereas at least here it was like, okay, there's some technical issues. We've all been in a call with that person who cuts out. It happened to George a few weeks ago. Like he had to dip out. Like it just happens.
That's why he's not here. That's honestly it. Really, it's
that's actually it. At work as well. It's happened so many times where it's like, oh, if you're back in a minute or whatever. And so to me, it's the realistic part of it again, which it kind of keeps you on board with. I'm like, right, okay. But maybe it went on a bit too long. The fact that it's just so in and out and whatnot. But it was good. I really don't know what's happening with Cyril now. I kind of had a thought in where it was going to go, but now it just feels like he's going to get to FERRIX. And then Miro's going to be there, and then she's going to be like, right, you need to stop following me. And this would be like the only time where he's not been following her. He's just been doing something on his own. And then that's where he would die. I do want him to die, but I found his character to be an entertaining mess, which is what I would call him.
No, that's great. We should all take...
I was just going to say, I think it wouldn't make any sense or any use if he died in the next episode, which is weird. Like, I feel like he's going to die midway through the next series. I don't think this is the right time for him to pass on, because he hasn't had any form of redemption. He hasn't had any form of, like, big moment or anything like that since episode 3. There's nothing to build up. It's been a very, very, very slow build up, and it's not really gone to much. Like,
I feel like it would be done to kind of then to use the dreaded term of subverting expectations, to be like, oh, this
character
has a meaning and we'll do something to then stop it.
Unless, if he kills off a major character, and that's kind of why Cassian kind of becomes a rebel, whether he kills Luthen or kills someone else, a big character, a massive character, and is kind of the Kickstarter for that.
Yeah.
It could be the way forward, because I brought up just before from Zamba's Film Emporium that the relationship they have is very much like that Norman Bates to his mother, although she's already dead in this.
That's exactly what I thought when I was watching it.
Yeah. one day when he gets back and they find out where she is going to just be that skeleton on the chair that I thought she will be. So yeah, they do have this awful bond where you wouldn't blame him if one day he decides to, find an iron or something and it was Trevor again. So yeah, I think there is much to happen with his character. I think I don't think he will make it out the final episode. I think you're right. If by any chance Marva is alive, I could see Cyril using then her or Bix as the thing he takes from Cassian to then cause Cassian to take him out of the story entirely. And then his mother will be seen just laughing, eating cereal. That'll be the last shot, just giggling at the news.
Oh, you still there?
I'm yes, sorry, I just stopped talking. That was all. I thought I thought I'd do a joke. I was going to freeze for a few seconds and just see if anyone continues on. But it's okay. We left it dead end. That was kind of all we had on FERRIX, really. They were the kind of major scenes that we had. So I thought we'd go on to next is probably one of my favorite acting performances. That across this entire series, we've had performances of levels I've not really experienced in Star Wars. But Genevieve O'Reilly in the scenes on Coruscant was just unreal. Her daughter starting to follow the Chandrilan things that they have, this almost Catholicism chanting and prayer sort of thing that they were doing in the background, that she was just sort of abhorrent that was going to happen. She decides that she's going to give up her daughter when speaking to Vel, that she's going to let her go and bring this meeting, and she played it to such a T that it broke my heart. The last shot of her you see, and when Vel gets up to leave, that she's just a broken woman as well. That this is not the way I thought Mon Mothma's story would go in this series at all.
We see where she ends up in Rogue One, so it's like it's getting her to that point. And she's played it fantastically across the entire series so far as a character who's very kind of walking the tightrope of, giving away the fact that she's actively funding the rebellion, but also just being a nuisance and being kind of like the shadow secretary to the Empire, if that makes sense. Like she's kind of giving them the other option, the people option, and the Empire's obviously just going, no, you silly goose, we only keep you here because, we need a voice to squash down, basically. We need the other opinion so we can prove it wrong. They don't really take her seriously. But the fact that she's been using that to her advantage the entire time and kind of slowly working in things for the rebellion, like setting up Luthen and just everything that's gone into that and all of the domino effects that have happened from that. And now it's getting to the part where she's having to, sacrifice her family for the rebellion. Like she's completely skint. She's got no more funds. And she's like, well, the only way that we can survive is because, I'm going to have to make personal sacrifices here. And that's kind of the state we see her in this episode.
Yeah, I just love Phil's comment there, just that she realizes how far she's fallen because it shows that her drive, also how far she has to go before she will break. So, yeah, she's just... Sam, your thoughts on Mon Mothma?
Well, you already know I adore her anyway. I think she's a great character. I'm so glad that we've managed to see more of her. And what I've loved about her so far is that she's so understanding of herself, and she holds her nerve, and she knows exactly what she's doing, but she's doing it in such a fluid way. It doesn't feel like, I believe her when she's speaking to people and she's acting a certain way. She really plays the character well, and playing a character with two sides. And so it's really difficult to watch her be struggling because she's held her nerve so long, and to kind of blurt some of this stuff out to Vel and to really say some things. I mean, in their previous interaction, there was, I feel like, a bit more tension there. Neither were really letting up how much they knew about things. But here she just seems a bit more withdrawn. There's no color in her face. The way just her whole demeanor is not the same. And I feel like it's something where she's held it for so long that now she's just like, she doesn't really see an end. And I think I'm hoping something in this finale will kind of like give her a boost and will give her something that will then lead into season 2. I don't know if it was George or if it was Phil who said about maybe her family wouldn't survive this season. With the way it's gone and with the one episode left, I feel like they probably will survive this. But whether or not they will survive the entire series, I don't know. But I think we're at a really interesting point with her now, and I feel like there's so much more story for her to tell. To what Tate said about to get to where she's in Rogue One, she's so headstrong. She can say whatever because she's in an environment where she's able to do so. You compare her environments between those two things. She can't do anything. She cannot be her full true self. And so I hope she doesn't lose her family. But based on how it's going down, I mean, she needs to lose something as well. Everyone who gets to the rebellion will lose things. And I feel like Mon Mothma's going to lose status, money, power. But clearly, with such a strong name from such a strong background, that's how it helps her to become the leader that she is. But no, I'm glad that we didn't get too much because there was so many characters to touch upon this time. But no, she's had great focus, and it's just been a shame that she's where it is. But I think it's been good for Vel actually to kind of have a bit more, because I know she went to Luthen's, didn't she?
Yeah. Mm. I think, I was going to put that next, but I just think, like you said, headstrong for Mon Mothma is exactly what she is. But now to be so headstrong and also so desperate at the same time, she's got this total clash of what's going on with where she is. And I think you're right that she might lose her family, but I don't think it might be in that they are killed off. I think she may be forced away from them, sort of like, I have to go. I have to now start this life, and it's away from you. You're following a different path that I can't follow. I've heard that in another Star Wars film before. So I think that could very much be.
I don't think she'll mind the husband going, to be fair. So
nobody would. No, he's still a dick. But the daughter seems to be the draw that she doesn't want to give her up. And like she said in the last episode, that when the gangster was there and saying that's the first thing you've lied about today, or the first untruth you've told, when she said you didn't want him to meet. But her desperation is calling for that, where she's like, I've got there was 400 grand she's out that she is going to get investigated. So she's just, she's hit this desperation point where I don't see how she tips to get away with this with her family. And I think she's going to be ousted, or just she's going to have to take herself away from it all.
I'd say desperation is actually quite a good theme for this episode, because a lot of people are desperate in this episode for various different things. You see Cyril desperate to try and kind of cling on to any kind of ounce that he had in the first place, like trying to get his revenge on Cassian and trying to prove himself to the ISB. It's, Cassian desperate at the end of the episode, grieving for his mother, or at least that kind of look off into the sunset of like, God, I need to kind of do something here. You've got Mon Mothma desperate to keep the rebellion alive. And we also see it with both Luthen and Saw Gerrera, like their negotiations are desperate negotiations needed at the time. So I think desperation is actually, it's a theme of the episode.
And I think that plays in, like Sam was just saying about when Vel visits Luthen's shop again, and she's so annoyed that Luthen's not there, and for her to bump up against Claire, I think is the lady's name who works there, or is part of his operation, just works there. So just to belittle her character there a little bit. His other compadre in this, really, it's just that bumping of them, saying where she threw it, I'm responsible for what went down on Aldhani. It's like, I'm here every day, like spinning so many plates, like you've got no idea what you're doing, girl, compared to what I'm having to do for this operation. And I thought it was actually, for just such a sharp scene, it was there and it was gone. It was really played well for Vel's character from when we first met her to where she is now, and also like Claire's come on so far as well to be not just part of this, but she's right up there with Luthen in like the challenge of this building of a rebellion.
Yeah, and it's a character who I think when she was first introduced, I didn't really think much of her. She was just the assistant. But as it's gone on, she's such an integral part to that operation, and is almost like kind of working as the secretary, kind of middle management to the rebellion at this moment in time. Like, she's the one who's putting in the connection. She's the one who's kind of sitting by the radio. She's the one who's kind of doing these face-to-face meetings when, you know, Luthen isn't there. So she's a character who's kind of come a long way during the series, and it goes back to that point of desperation. You know, they're all desperate for various different things in this episode, and this is a very desperate kind of conversation between them, because she's like, "Oh yeah, I did. I've done it." It's like, yeah, we're all doing our part, aren't we?
What I really liked about this is because, and echoing what you both said, is that, you know, Claire, I didn't expect her to be, you know, as, you know, important to the story as she has become. And I think what I really like is that, you know, something like the operations that are going on, the rebellion, you know, the building of this, it doesn't come from just one person. It involves so many people, and I think a lot of people would expect that Luthen's kind of the one from this side who is sorting everything, but it's really a combination of him and Claire, and that really he needs her as much as she needs him. It's very much not just one or the other, like, you need to do this, you do that, I have my opinion, I have mine, and we'll see, you know, how it's going to go down. We've seen them have this kind of abrasive relationship, but an understanding of each other as well. So I've liked how they've, you know, portrayed that anyway. But I just like that she's definitely her own person anyway. And in the conversation with Vel, you see that more. You know, she's extremely strong in it, and she so knows what she's doing that even though we're understanding. Sorry, I can't even speak. Understanding of Vel, you know, she's like, yeah, I get that. However, I'm doing all this as well, and you're going to need to wait. So I like that, you know, you need to have, you know, this friction. You need to have this, because I think it just, you know, again, adds to the groundwork that something like a rebellion is not easy. You don't just get it. You don't get a bunch of people who go, oh, I don't like this, and come together. Every single person has their own point of view, their own, you know, perspective, opinion on things. And I like that we're seeing the ugly side of the rebellion at the same time. It's not all roses, that we would expect that the Empire is purely bad, the rebels are purely good. You know, we got hints of what the rebels could be in Rogue One with Cassian, and it's kind of like trickled out into these other characters where, you know, morally good maybe, but they're doing questionable acts as well. So I think it's just good again for the world building to just add this.
It's an incredible, like, scene. I say it felt pivotal but in such a short scene, it works so well. I love the tension between the two characters, and as we're gonna segue into tension between two characters, oh look at that! It's like I've done this before. We are gonna go to Saw Gerrera and Luthen in another, like, let's show this scene for the BAFTA announcement. Lovely acting, because you've got two actors who are really just up there, just throwing out, it looked like an amazing time playing in this world. But the scene between them and Luthen playing on the desperation is going to come again, but the way he plays Saw by saying, "Yep, two tubes, that's my guy, that's who's giving me all the information," just he got him so worked up. Like, the trust is just, there's trust there, but nowhere near what it needs to be for them to be on coherent sides of a war. Like they say, they just are bumping off each other with every single time. That he lets Saw in on the plan to let Grieger die. That he's going to give up these 30 men just because he's got the ISB who want him. And if we do this, they're going to know. And if we don't, we're going to have a bit more time to play. I thought the whole scene from start to finish, when Skarsgård is on there and he's playing, and Forrest Whitaker, just does it get much better than that?
Just honestly, stick some boxing gloves on between these two. It's fantastic. Like, every single scene. And I mean, they've had kind of a couple of scenes in one of the previous episodes, and it was fantastic. And it was like oh yeah, just, you know, show it to all the awards panels and stuff like that. And then we've had the amazing last episode where we had two fantastic back-to-back speeches, which are both going to be kind of, you know, they're BAFTA nominated, aren't they? they're probably going to win Golden Globes as well. Like, guaranteed it's going to happen from those two. But then we have another situation which could also be kind of put forward, and it was another fantastic conversation. And it's an interesting look, not only to kind of the tactics of, you know, a war or an ongoing kind of conflict, but also just how frail and how fragile that relationship that Saw has within his team. It is so ragtag. No one gets on with each other. Like, no one trusts each other. No one even trusts each other's opinions. It's so, like, unlike the other side of it that's all very nice and organized and everything's kind of put together. The ISB, which is like, oh, we're going to go do this and we're going to have meetings in our giant rooms. No. These are just people who kind of have the same idea but don't really know about the same execution. And it's just fascinating to see any kind of dialogue or discussion around Saw Gerrera. He's been a character who's been throughout Star Wars now for quite a while. We've had kind of little tidbits of him being kind of thrown in here and there. And now we're seeing a bit more of his character, a bit more of how he acts, a bit more of kind of where he goes. And we know exactly how his ending is. We've seen his ending. It's in Rogue One. Like, so to see kind of this stage of him where he's a little bit more wild and loose than when we first met him. He's a little bit more on edge, and every single character is going to have a feisty dialogue with him. I think introducing him in this episode as he's in a bad mood is like, wow, really? Like, we've seen him in a good mood so far. Like, how are you going to open up with that?
I think I've been saying, you know, for ages, I want to see more of Saw. Every time we see him, it's always for kind of like just a few sections at a time, and that's it. We don't see, you know, large chunks of time with him. I would like to see more focus. However, you know, what it's done is kind of give us enough to know about him. But again, linking with the whole desperation thing, we know that with his character, as time goes on within, you know, this period of time, he gets more desperate and kind of more frazzled and more hectic. He's kind of losing it a little bit. And I think a large part of that is fear. A large part of that is distrust. You know, I think to Fallen Order, where, you know, he's the hero who goes in to save the Wookiees, and they do that. But then as soon as danger kind of gets larger, he disappears. He gets out of there. You know, so, you know, it feels like he's this person who is half in, half out. And so for me, like, he's a distrustful character anyway. So I feel like he's easily manipulated. He might put on this bravado, but I think Luthen is just so intelligent. He knows what to do. He knows what to say. I think Luthen's trick of getting the gun, I loved that so much. But he really says all the right things, and Saw has to believe him because there's really no other way. And, you know, the likelihood is that he'll get killed if he chooses, you know, one of the ways. So he's going to need to go with it. But no, the tension was incredible. I really didn't expect the scene to kind of last as long as it did, but it just kept going further and further. But it wasn't, you couldn't take your eyes away because you just wanted to know what is going to happen here. Is it going to be a shootout? Like, part of me did think, oh wait, is Luthen going to like die here? Are they just going to do like a random, you know, Ned Stark episode before the finale? Just like, I really did think it. But no, it's fantastic. And, you know, like I said, the acting was impeccable.
But let's be honest, Saw couldn't have got that gun pulling trick because, you know, I read Twitter every now and again, and according to some rumors on there that Luthen might be a former Jedi. How are people feeling? Because Two Tubes takes that weapon off him. That looks peculiar, like a lightsaber hilt, weirdly. Just that little, look like almost truncheon type thing. It's just been rumored. I read some stuff. I don't buy it myself. Got all those Jedi artifacts. He's got Padme's headdress. Where'd he get them from? Yeah, right. He's a Jedi. And that should please all those people who are saying there's not enough Jedi in the series. So they can come back to, right?
So we got a comment. We got a few comments actually. First of all, rebellion consists of desperate groups that shared interests that binds them here for the hatred of the Empire. I absolutely agree, and that is from full display in this episode of people starting to band together. We've also got Phil coming in as well. There's no good in Star Wars, only less questionable motives. Even the Jedi wanted to have the galaxy the way around them in which their hubris brought their downfall. Exactly. Also, Martin,
There's just
X-Wings.
Oh yeah, they do look
X-Wings.
good.
It's always good. And because we got X-Wings, look at that. We can now segue into getting TIE fighters. Oh, this is going so well. We got our sort of big action set piece for the episode, which we haven't really had much in the way of space battle at all in this. We get the original design for the Star Destroyer in the Cantwell class. It was designed by Colin Cantwell, gentleman. I think he passed away late last year, or early this year. But that was his original design. You've got that very 70s space 1999 feel about the design, the big radar dish. And it was supposed to be used in Solo, I believe, but it got cut from that. So I really liked actually being on the bridge of Star Destroyer. I love that they had this overpowerful tractor beam because they had a big radar shield. I thought it was such a nice scene that there was at no point was Luthen panicked about being caught by these guys. He was like, yep, and he's got that droid getting him. I need this to be this different type of ship. Get to the fake ID, so to show the bouncer and so he can get in. And he gets it. So yeah, it's absolutely fine. Checks out. It's an older code, but it checked out. It was fine. We'll just drop things like that every now and again. It's fine. Don't worry about it. And yeah, he then had this little battle with the TIE fighters that he took out with these two exceptional lasers on the side of his ship. It was just a really nice scene where these TIE fighters were just like outgunned, outmanned. And then he was off into hyperspace. I loved as well the ejection of all those little missiles that blew up the radar dish. Looked incredible. Like for me, I didn't go, it's a CGI model. That to me looked like actual. It might not have been, but looked like model work, like we saw in Rogue One as well. It was just, it popped off the screen. I loved it.
First of all, seeing that ship and seeing kind of the concept art photos and stuff like that side by side. Oh, mwah, beautiful,
Yeah,
bellissimo.
Chef's kiss.
Oh, it was just unreal to see. Yeah, there we go. How good is that ship? There we go.
Yeah.
We can keep on upping it as much as we want. I'd love to see it come back again at any point during Star Wars, or maybe that's kind of the only time we're going to see it, because it's like, we got this new shiny little ship. Oh, it's easily defeatable by this tiny little kind of one-man ship, you know. So maybe that's why they kind of no longer use it. But just the ingenious of his escape from there, no panic at all. He's like, okay, let's get the fake code. Okay, let's wait to be pulled in by maximum tractor beam, and then I'm literally just going to fire off some debris, and it's just going to be attracted to the tractor beam, and that's just going to destroy the ship in itself. Genius. And then after that, like, he has the ability to just kind of, you know, fence off a few TIE fighters because everyone seems to be the greatest pilot in the galaxy. That's the only thing. That's the only small little smidge that I can say. Is like, how on earth is every single hero in this goddamn series so good at flying things? Can't we have
Jedi?
one who's not the best pilot in the galaxy?
Jedi reflexes.
We're just really stirring the pot now. But no, I really enjoyed the scene. This was my favorite scene in the episode.
Oh wow!
I think it was. I genuinely do, and I think it's because I do quite like watching action scenes in Star Wars, and this was a good action scene. It stuck in my mind. I know there's some really good speeches in this episode. There's some really good dialogue here, but it's high time we had just an action scene that wasn't like an action scene with like a long speech over the top. An actual action scene in space. It's Star Wars. I want to see stars. I want to see wars, and this was the closest we got so far.
Yeah, I mean, what I will say is that, like, a scene like this makes me want to know, where do you come from? Because, I mean, I've never really thought about it that much. I'm like, because there's so many characters where, you know, we need to know the backstory of a little bit more. It's like, okay, whatever. But because of this, it's like, how did you get here? Like,
it's the reveal. You know, he's actually Cassian's lost sister. We just didn't know.
He pulls on the wig at the end. It's a long flowing one.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
I mean, potentially. Oh, what was I going to I don't even know what I was going to say.
Sorry, lost my train of thought.
We lost Sam.
It's the visual. It's a James Bond. I'm going to link it's James Bond. It was a woman all the time, but it you know, and it's like, okay, great. But no, I think, you know, the good thing about having the space battle here is that I don't really think there's going to be anything else like that in this season anyway. You know, don't overuse something like that. I know it probably costs more, you know, to create something like it, and if you want to do it, you know, do it right. Star Wars has a good track record of doing amazing space sequences and battles. There's very, you know, all of them are memorable in one way or another. You know, with Rogue One for me being, you know, the absolute pinnacle of what a Star Wars space battle should be. And so to just have it teased a bit here, and, you know, seeing that concept art Star Destroyer, seeing the TIE bomber, which you don't really see very often, something like that is just really nice to have. You know, seeing his ship, which, you know, because of what happens, it reminds me of a bounty hunter ship. You know, it has all these bells and whistles that you wouldn't really know about. Again, it just adds to the lore of, you know, what this character was, who was he, how has he become this, who pimped his ride, you know, exhibit apparently. But yeah, to have him like destroy the dish like that, he did it in such style. That's the thing. Like, everything was just so smooth. And again, the lasers, I mean, blew my mind. I was like, this is how you do it. And then to just get away, and you kind of see the guy, the general or whoever is commanding the ship, the Star Destroyer, and he just has this face that's kind of like Admiral Pierre in Empire when the Falcon gets away, and he's just like, he's angry, but he's just like, oh shit.
Yeah, that was actually quite nice, but I'm also really pissed off. Like, yeah. I admire your skills, but at the same time, I'm furious.
You know, this is great, but that was great to watch. How do I explain that to Lord Vader later?
Yeah, nobody tell Vader, and the dish just fell off.
There's some kind of malfunction here. We're all good here, though.
An asteroid field.
Yes.
Look, and if you're playing along with us with Star Wars, the Star Wars things bingo, you've just filled your card.
Yes, you have.
In the drinking game, you should at least be tipsy.
Yeah.
But it was exceptionally Dash. Thought it was a brilliant scene. Right, it was nice to get, like Tate said, nice to get a ship battle in space, which say we've not really. I don't think we've had any in this. We've had a lone TIE fighter being terrifying over Aldani, and now we've got the three here just out and attacking, but getting vaporized very, very quickly. Just exceptional stuff. It was great, and it kind of leads us to, I guess, our title character. We'll get onto Andor, really kind of finish out this episode today. And Cassian, we come to meet him, and he's clinging to a cliff. And really, it's a good job we know that Melshi makes it, because it gave me real feeling and vibes of the opening of Rogue One, where his friends hurt his arm, so can't climb very well, and he's just like, I'm going to shoot you. Yeah, I think had we not known Melshi gets through to Rogue One, he would be like, my hands can't climb. Off, there you go, and I'll clamber up. It's fine. It was just, yeah, and we got to then go, obviously, see a nice call forward to episode 7 with a quad jumper and Unkar Plutt's friends, species. I don't know what kind of species they are, but they're definitely Plutts. No Simon Pegg this time, but definitely them, who fire the most bizarre and disgusting sticky goo webs that I've ever seen fired out of a. Like, if there was a slobby Spider-Man, that's what he'd fire. Like just be, that's
my God,
thanks.
what was that sentence? Just
slobby Spider-Man. Oh.
Please,
look, I didn't say I was here to bring quality. It was going to be quality.
The camera's gone. The camera's gone.
Yeah, Sam's had enough of this nonsense. He's out.
No, he's just gone to search out what that is online, and it's
Slobby Spider-Man is now trending.
I was looking for the alien name, and for some reason, my USB, I just heard the diddle-dun, and then I heard you guys saying, "Oh, the camera's gone." I'm like, "Oh, what?" But the alien. To turn this around quickly, the alien is a Caradian.
Caradian.
We will absolutely go with that. I did like them. There were kind of that broken English. They didn't kind of make sense, but they obviously had no look. The Empire had poisoned or ruined the water supplies. You kind of got that feeling that they'd done that, and then they were going to just like, yeah, no worries, you want to live somewhere, we'll take you. But I thought it was a really nice opening to get literally straight back in and see where Cassian was, and they're just like that clinging to a wall while that ship was obviously hunting and rounding up prisoners, where you feel they might be the only two that made it from jumping off there to where we find them.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame, if you've done that massive prison escape just to, not actually escape and be sent back in. That moment, taste of freedom, either to be sent back to the slaughter or to be, actually slaughtered, on the spot. It is a shame for those characters, but at the same time, it's nice to see that both of them got out. Cassian isn't alone; he does have a friend there, and yeah, they kind of escape. They come across, Uncard Plot's mates, and it's they just kind of. I think this episode genuinely, weirdly, could have actually happened without Cassian, which is weird. You didn't really need to know how they escaped too much, and kind of him meeting those two fishermen didn't really add anything to the plot other than, oh, we also hate the Empire. Hey, we'll give you a lift to, the party place that you were at previously. Honestly, this episode for Cassian could have been dialed down into a phone call, which was the phone call at the end, the radio message, which was like, your mum's dead, and kind of him staring out across the water. That can be condensed. That could even be kind of the opening to the final episode. You never know. Like, I don't think, it was a nice final shot. I want to add to that as well, but I don't think he has much of an impact on this episode. We already kind of saw him start to escape. It's not too much of a jump to kind of see him be able to get off planet, or not really seeing him get off planet. You could just kind of make that up on your own, or kind of leave it as an Easter egg or something like that. So I don't think his contribution to the episode was as big, shall we say, as the previous episode, where it was such a massive part of it.
I agree mostly with that. I mean, we don't get too much of him, really. It's really the beginning and the end that we get. So I'm glad that the rest of the episode is focused on other characters and how it kind of gets people to the finale. But I did like the beginning. I've got to be honest. When I saw them on the wall, I just expected them to look on the right and see Simon Pegg in Star Trek Beyond clinging to the cliff, and just, I've not actually seen that film, but I remember it being in the trailer, and it's just like, oh god, he's there. And when he mentioned Simon Pegg, it just brought it back again. But I just like that at least it builds on this, friendship with Melchith, who, and I kind of hope will come back and be recurring in the next season as well. But I think for a lot of the haters of Andor who've said about them not a lack of aliens, I hope that these aliens cater to them a little bit. It was good to see them, to have a different language for the slobbery web, whatever stuff, which did look disgusting, but I thought it was just great. I just love how it was. It did just open the episode with just a nice different way of doing things, and it was see practical things anyway. But then once they're gone, they're out of it until the end. I have to say it was good that there was that callback to can't remember this episodes. It must be episode 7, I think, when Cassian puts that box on top of, I guess, in the bathroom area, and it has a gun and credits and whatnot. And I like that we go back to that, because it did make me think, why is he doing that now? But clearly he didn't know he was going to get captured that day and be away for an undetermined amount of time. But it was good that it came back. And then again, his phone call, which I think I like how it was done, where once he hears that he doesn't say anything else, he doesn't speak, he's very much wanting to know things. But as soon as he hears that his mum's died, he just completely switches off, has his moment, and then acts fine with Melchir. And I think it's him putting up his barriers now, and really kind of, which he was already doing anyway, but now it's the next level. Like, you lose something, you gain something elsewhere, and with him, it's kind of protecting himself, which does make me think that whole thing about whether he will actually go back to FERRIX or not, just because he needs to protect himself. And just echoing what Tate said about obviously one of the final shots where he's looking out into the distance, and which is very reminiscent of Rogue One, and it's kind of looking outward towards your destiny. Was my initial thing anyway. Was kind of looking what is out there. The sun is setting. And for him, a massive part of his life is gone. What is going to happen next? Here, he's got a way to look out. In Rogue One, he does not. But it'll be interesting to see all the compilations where people fade transition between those two shots and whatnot. But I thought it was a lovely way to end it. And yeah, I do feel really bad for him. He just has been through a lot of rubbish. And now to have that news, it is sad. But again, as always, there's hope with Star Wars. So, and we know he gets out of it. So.
Yeah,
anyway.
That would be
so
a
what's
twist
to worry
if they
about?
just, killed him.
I just think both excellent points. You're right, Tate, to the point where it very much probably didn't need to see the escape and the messy goo, and that part of it. We did just really need the phone call. It could have been on any planet. We didn't need to know how he got there. I did like we went back to Namos, so he was getting his stuff, and I really like you said there, Sam, where it was that. All right, I've accepted that now. She's dead. That's going to drive me forward. And Melchi's in that point, like, what if it's only the two of us? What if it's only us two who got off? We have to go our separate ways now. We have to spread the word. And obviously they're going to come back at some point in the rebellion together. So I think he will play a role, certainly in series 2, in some stages, that they will cross paths again, I think, without a single doubt. I think Gilroy really liked him as well. I've heard when they're on Rogue One, that's why he's back in this series as well. But yeah, so I guess that kind of covers Cassian as well. Everyone is after Cassian. This is all about everyone finding out what their point is to bring them back to FERRIX, and that's where we're obviously headed. Before I get to looking at the next and last episode, what are your final thoughts on today's episode?
I think it's a small step down from the previous episode, but that's because the previous episode could sweep awards come award season. It was so good on every single level that, it's very difficult to compare this episode to that. The only episode I could really compare this one to is the last episode that I reviewed on Andor, which was episode 7, the announcement, as kind of a setup episode for what's to come. I think I preferred the previous one. It's no kind of down on this episode at all, because it's still good Star Wars content. But really, everyone's eyes are focused on the finale. No one's eyes are really going to be looking back and reflecting on this in particular episode. It's all going to be looking forward. So I personally, I preferred previous episodes, but it's still a decent episode.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I would say, a traditional filler, which it's not a filler. There's not really been any filler for the show in terms of a full episode. Obviously, there's certain, plots that need to be stretched out a bit, but you need to have that breathing room, which happens in every show. Not everything can be a 10 all the time. And this, is the setup for the finale. So you need to kind of breathe after that prison escape and get ready for the next thing. We've had all the big arcs, the story arcs of this season. And we kind of just into these last 2 now, will be its own mini arc, I guess. But no, I think it was still a solid episode. I don't think there's been any, bad episode of this season. I think this has been a great, showcase of acting across the board, and which we've seen anyway, but so many characters highlighted in this episode. That probably one of the least we've had of the ISB, and Miro's character. But I know she'll have a big presence in the next episode for sure. No, it's difficult to say much more about it, really, because it has been so good, and I part of me hates praising it so much because you kind of want to say, what's wrong with this? But it's so different. It's been so different from anything that we've had, and I feel like a lot of care has gone into it, and there's been so much to the show, and you can see the work behind it, and I want more of it. I can't believe we're almost there. We waited, for this, and it got 3 episodes at the beginning, and that's been down to the last one. It's a shame, but I mean, we've had 12 episodes, the most amount of episodes for the Star Wars live action series so far. And yeah, bring on the finale.
And speaking of that, I just want to say to myself that I think, it's been just this level of acting I never thought I'd get in Star Wars. And that's kind of the thing that's really dragged me along the series. It's not I've really been dragged, skipped along with the series. I have loved it. This episode, right, it was such a high peak last week. It was very hard for anything else to kind of keep on climbing until we get the finale, that you kind of need this to be like well, now we'll breathe a bit and then we'll go again next week. Though I just think this just some of the greatest acting I've certainly seen in Star Wars, and sometimes in television overall. I think some of these performances have been right up there. So I'm loving it. And that kind of just leaves us with one thing. I mean, we obviously know we're all going back to FERRIX next week. What are your thoughts coming into the final episode?
People gonna die.
Yes.
Yeah.
Credits. Yeah.
But Cassian won't.
And Mon Mothma won't.
Oh, that's...
And Melshi won't.
Spoiler alert.
Grave opinions here on the channel. No, I going into final episode, I'm not sure what to expect. I genuinely don't know what to expect. I don't know if they're going to go big bombastic finale or kind of setting up for series 2, which is where it properly kicks off. I'm assuming this is going to be kind of the start of his rebellious tendencies, shall we say, or maybe the point where he joins the rebellion. Fingers crossed. If there's one thing I'd like to see, it'd be him meeting Saw Gerrera.
Yeah, I can't remember. Had they met in Rogue One? Had they said that they'd met before? I can't remember.
I'm trying
it would be interesting. I mean, it would be good to see Saw again, I think, in the next one, just to kind of see where he's going to end up. Because I feel like having this be his last appearance in this season would be a bit weird, I guess. But I think for me, I'd like to, again, death is going to happen. But I don't know whether they're going to do like a Mandalorian, what they did in season 1, where they had an all-out battle basically for the entirety of that final episode, which I enjoyed, but I wouldn't want them to do that here. I think this series has been a lot about the people interactions and these characters that we need kind of some solid conclusions for some of them and some good setup for the next season. That I'm sure a battle is going to go down, but I don't want it to completely be the episode. I really do want some last words to be had, to be shared with some characters, a chance to say goodbye and really just prepare, because there's so much story to tell. But I definitely do believe that they're going to close a lot of arcs off here, and we need to follow the characters that we do know are going to survive. So Cassian and Mon Mothma and whatnot. Luthen, I think, could die still. I really do. I think that would be the shocker. But he's kind of on my list of... He's at the top of the list, actually, along with Bix and basically everyone else on FERRIX. So, yeah. Yeah,
I'm in complete agreement with you both. I think there is going to be a lot of destruction. I think if FERRIX is still there as a planet by the time, or at least a civilization by the time we do the episode, they've done well out of this, because I think it's going for an all-out. By Cassian, you're about to lose everything you ever loved, and you're now going to be just a fodder for the rebellion. Now that's all you're going to have going forward. But yeah, it was a great episode. I can't wait for the finale, which will be happening next Wednesday. We will be back here to chat about it next Wednesday. Lovely ticket going across. Thank you very much, Tate. So yeah, next Wednesday we'll be back in some variation. George will probably let him back on. Maybe flip a coin. We'll see. It's been such a good time. I'm sure he'll get back on. George, it's fine. Your seat. I'm just keeping it warm. But yes, and Tate, I don't know if you want to go through what else is going on the channel over the coming weeks.
Yes. So once again, thank you for everyone who's commented along. If you're just coming across this video as well, we'd like to see your comment as well. Tell us what you thought about this episode. Tell us what you thought about the series in general. And make sure to obviously like, subscribe, share the video, get a discussion going on that. So we do have a big video coming up, a video that we've been working on for quite a while now. which is our Steven Spielberg top 10 ranking. Our retrospective finished, I believe, yesterday with West Side Story. We're going to try and get Fableman's review out once it comes out. But for now, we have a chance to rank the top 10 Steven Spielbergs of all time. It was an amazing video to record. It was amazing to have so many submissions in, and I think there's going to be a few surprises in there. So please check out that video. It's another one of our massive videos for the year, Tuesday, the 22nd of November. It's going to be huge. Loads of support if you can. Come on and check that out. And if you'd like to see where any of our other videos are coming out, go follow us on our social media streams. So Twitter and Instagram at cinema_savvy. Go onto Facebook and Letterboxd. Just type in Cinema Savvy or go to the description below. And go onto our Redbubble store where you can pick up various different things which has our name on it. And then we get support for the channel by doing so. Thank you.
Absolutely. So yeah, just before we sign off, Sam, where can people find you? They've probably heard it a lot of times. I know when I'm on here, I get sick of saying it, but you know, it will be in the description below as well, I'm guessing. But Sam, fire away where you can find yourself.
Yes, so you'll mostly just find me on Twitter at SamR_1995. I also have a YouTube channel, Sam R, which, you know, search it great. So mostly focus on James Bond stuff. Been a bit quiet at the moment with all the stuff that's gone on over the past few months, but hopefully some downtime will do me some good and I will get back to it. And I also write for License to Queer if you want to check out any queer perspectives on James Bond, which is my bag, but also, you know, Star Wars is a love. So I'll hopefully be here for next week and also for Star Wars projects in the future.
And just before we do close out, I just want to say thank you so much for Cinema Savvy letting me come on and play as host for a week. It's been amazing, and was totally a nervous wreck before we started, but I think it went okay. We got Slobby Spider-Man. That's the next T-shirt. So it all will be fine with the world. It's all been good. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you everybody who watched, everybody who commented along. Been an absolute blast, and we'll see you next week.